Dear listener, imagine this. Imagine a white dove gliding over towering blackened trees. Its wings shimmer as it slices through the cold, choking mist of twilight. Beneath it, a young man runs through thick grass, his sweat falling, breath erratic, eyes wild with confusion. A woman's voice calls his name from within the fog, too soft to belong to a human, yet too real to ignore. Suddenly, the trees seem to shift. The earth feels like it's breathing. And at the edge of his vision stands a girl. Beautiful, untouchable, with eyes that carry 1,000 untold secrets. But who is she? And why does the very air around her feel like it could freeze the soul? We are about to uncover a truth that was never meant to be known. But before we get into the story, don't forget to support this channel by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Your support truly means the world to us and keeps us inspired to bring more powerful stories to you. A huge thank you to all of you who've already liked, shared, commented, and subscribed. You are an essential part of this storytelling journey. And hey, don't forget to check in down in the comments. Let us know where you're listening from. We'd love to see how far our stories have traveled. Now let's return to the story. That night, clouds began to swallow the sky above a quiet village. The wind carried a damp, heavy scent from the north. In a humble hut at the edge of a hill, an old man sat in silence. His back was hunched, his gaze deep, like someone who's seen too much and spoken too little. His name was Grandpa Rono. His voice, raspy and low, always drew the attention of the younger villagers. Bogus sat before him, 22 years old, restless, reckless. He was the kind of young man villagers whispered about. Too curious, too stubborn, always chasing something dangerous. Don't ever step into communing forest gas, Grandpa Rono warned, his voice grave. It's not just about spirits. That forest is cursed. If you ever see the white dove inside, don't follow it. Ever. Bogus chuckled, shaking his head. A white dove. Probably just an albino bird. Our ancestors loved to exaggerate, huh, Grandpa? But deep down the name white dove stuck with him. Especially since the past few weeks. He had been seeing a glowing white figure fly over the fields at dusk. No one believed him. The next evening, without telling anyone, Bogus packed a small bag, lit a torch, and slipped a short knife into his belt. He wore an old jacket and walked toward the forest boundary with steady steps. Communing forest was no ordinary forest. The moment his foot touched the first fallen leaf, the ground felt alive. Soft, cold, almost pulling him in. Fog descended fast, even though it was barely past 7. There were no crickets, no frogs. Just silence. Then Bogus froze. His torch caught a shape perched on a tall branch. Bird. Pure white. It turned its head toward him, its feathers glowing faintly like moonlight. And just as suddenly it flew. Slowly. Deeper into the forest. Without thinking, Bogus followed it. The forest changed. Roots slithered like snakes. The mist thickened. Then a voice, soft, unsettling, rose from the trees. Bogus! He stopped, heart racing. He turned his head. There, standing beneath a great tree, was a girl, draped in a green shawl that danced in the breeze. Her skin pale, her face too beautiful to belong to this world. Her eyes, haunting, fragile, endless. Who are you? Bogus asked, barely above a whisper. I am the one who guards this place, she replied. You must leave before twilight ends. Bogus took a step closer, but the ground beneath him moaned like it was alive. He could feel the forest watching him. I'm not leaving until I know who you are, he said, firm but shaken. The girl lowered her gaze, then stared into his eyes. "If you knew who I truly was, you might never want to return." Before Boggis could say a word, the fog swallowed her. In the distance, the white dove's call echoed through the trees, and the forest fell still again. But in Boggis's chest, something had changed. That night, for the first time, he felt fear. Boggis woke up trembling. Dew soaked his jacket, and the torch that once lit his way had burned out, leaving only blackened wood. Around him, the forest stood quiet, but not silent. The morning brought back the sounds of nature, gentle breezes, chirping birds, and rustling leaves. Still, the girl's face lingered in his mind. Her voice echoed in his ears. Who was she? And how did she know his name? He slowly stood up, knees weak. There was a shallow cut on his leg, though he couldn't remember how it happened. Boggis looked around, hoping to find a trace of the girl or the white dove, but the forest offered nothing. Just silence, thick and watchful. The way home felt strange. Even though he tried retracing his steps, the trees looked unfamiliar. Some trunks twisted unnaturally, almost as if they were trying to block his way. It took hours until he finally heard the familiar sound of a creek, the sign he was near the village. When he reached his home, Boggis collapsed. His mother, Buratmi, wept when she saw him. His skin was pale, his lips dry and cracked, and his eyes, they looked like he had seen something not meant for the living. "Why would you go there, Gas? Why are you so stubborn?" she cried, gently wiping his forehead with a wet cloth. But Boggis said nothing. He couldn't explain what he saw. Even a week later, when his body had healed, his mind remained trapped in that forest. That's when the dreams began. Each night he saw her again. The same girl, sitting among massive roots, her gaze heavy, never speaking. Sometimes, the white dove circled around her like a guardian. The dreams felt too vivid to be fantasy. Then one night, the dream changed. She was crying. Her tears fell to the ground, and from the soil grew dark red flowers, like they were blooming from her sorrow. Behind her, a tall shadow rose. A dark figure with glowing red eyes. It turned toward Boggis, and a deep, thunderous voice spoke. "Do not disturb our guardian." Boggis woke up drenched in sweat, heart racing. But strangely, the fear didn't stop him, pushed him forward. He was convinced. The girl wasn't a threat. She was asking for help. The next night, Boggis returned to the forest. This time he didn't bring a torch, just a small flashlight and a bottle of water. He walked the same path, marking trees with a knife as he moved. He moved slowly, carefully. The forest still shifted, still breathed, but now he was ready for it. Deep within the woods, he found a massive stone covered in moss. It had ancient carvings etched into its surface, carvings of a woman's face that looked eerily like the girl. Beneath the carving was a symbol he didn't recognize. He touched it, and suddenly a strong wind swept through the trees. The leaves rustled like whispers. He turned. There she was, standing just beyond the trees, closer than ever. Her long hair flowed behind her. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with sorrow. But this time she looked fragile. "You came back," she whispered. Boggis stepped forward. "I want to know who you are." She didn't respond. She turned and began to walk toward a dense patch of woods. Without a word, she motioned for him to follow. They passed between towering roots, squeezing through narrow openings. And suddenly the trees parted. There, hidden in the heart of the forest, lay a small valley. A stream of clear water flowed between mossy rocks. In the center, there was a single stone grave, old, overgrown, yet peaceful. Perched atop it sat the white dove. It turned its head toward Bogga's, flew in a wide circle, then returned to its place. "Whose grave is that?" Boggas asked quietly. The girl stood beside him. "My mother," she said. "She was the guardian of this forest before me." Boggas stared at her. The features on her face. They were almost identical to the stone carving he'd seen earlier. "What does this all mean? Why are you here? Who are you really?" She looked at him then. And for the first time, her sadness changed into something else, fear. "I cannot stay long. If they sense you here, they'll come. If you truly want to know everything, return during the full moon, alone. But don't bring metal. Don't bring fire." "Who are they?" But she vanished. The air grew heavy. Roots began to shift beneath his feet. The ground pulsed. The white dove flew high above, disappearing into the sky beyond the trees. Boggas stood there, breathless. The forest watched him again. Something inside him had awakened. And now he knew. He could not walk away. Not until he learned the truth about who she was. And who was hiding in the shadows of this ancient, cursed forest. 2 nights after his second encounter with a girl, Boggas sat on the front porch of his home, eyes fixed on the forest. That night felt different. The moon had not yet reached its full shape, yet its light felt colder, sharper. In silence he recalled her words, "Come during the full moon, without iron, without fire." He didn't understand, but something deep inside told him it wasn't just superstition. Inside the house, his mother, Buratmi, watched him silently. There was a worry in her eyes she could no longer hide. She had grown up with tales about that forest. Stories of unseen spirits, creatures without names, and most feared of all, Waranjin Gantarasi, a twisted, ancient tree said to guard a curse and the resting place of a secret long buried. The next morning, Buratmi took Boggas to a house she hadn't visited in years, Pakwiria's, an old man known in the village as the last keeper of forgotten knowledge. He lived alone at the forest's edge, surrounded by dried herbs, incense, and old cloth scrolls. When Boggas entered, Pakwiria didn't speak at first. He stared at him like he was studying something invisible. "I know why you're here," the old man said at last. "You've seen her, haven't you?" Boggas swallowed hard. "Who is she, really?" Pakwiria didn't answer immediately. He rose, opened a wooden chest, and pulled out a fragile cloth with a faded sketch of a woman standing beside a white bird. "That's her," Boggas whispered. Pakwiria gave a slow nod. Her name was Ning Asri. But she's no longer just a woman. She was bound by a blood oath, sworn by her mother, the last guardian of Waranjin Gantarasi. "What kind of oath?" Boggas asked. The old man looked toward the window. Long ago, before this village was ever founded, that forest was a hidden kingdom. Kingdom erased from history. Its last queen, the mother of Ning Asri, made a pact with the ancient spirits of the forest to protect their land from invaders. But in return, she had to offer her firstborn. Her daughter became the guardian, trapped for eternity beneath the roots of that cursed tree. Boggas felt cold. So Ning Asri was sacrificed. Not sacrificed. Enslaved. Turned into a vessel. Neither alive nor dead. Suspended between 2 worlds. Boggas clenched his fists. "She asked me to return during the full moon." Pakwiria turned sharply. "If you go then, there will be no turning back." "Why?" "Because during the full moon, the boundary between their world and ours disappears. They will see you as one of them. And if you bring iron or fire, they'll see you as a threat." Boggas fell silent. It all started to make sense. But one question still burned in his mind. Why me? Why can I see her? Pakwiria sat across from him and looked deep into his eyes. Because of your blood. Bagas stiffened. What do you mean? Your late father, he wasn't from this village. He came from a bloodline tied to that forest. Long ago, his ancestors had a bond with the spirits who dwell there. Maybe Ning Asri sensed that in you. The room felt smaller. Everything he knew about his father was crumbling. His father had died when Bagas was very young, and no one ever told him much. You still have a choice, said Pakwiria. Leave this behind. Forget her. Don't go back. But Bagas already knew. He couldn't turn away now. Ning Asri wasn't a monster. She was a soul caught in chains. And somehow he was part of the key. That night, the village fell silent. The moon rose higher, casting a pale light that made the trees shimmer like silver. And from somewhere deep in the forest, a white dove cried out, calling him back. This time, Bagas would answer. No iron, no fire, no fear. The full moon finally arrived. It hung perfect in the sky, round and pale white, like an eye watching from afar. Bagas walked slowly toward the forest trail. His steps quiet but resolute. No iron, no fire. Just a bottle of water, a small rope made from banana fiber, and an old gray cloth once belonging to his father, draped over his shoulder. The sky was silent. The night wind swept through the leaves in long whispers, as if the forest already knew this night would be different. Bagas marked familiar trees with small wooden pieces he placed above the roots. But oddly, the path felt straighter than before. It no longer twisted or confused, as if the forest itself was letting him in. He kept walking until he reached a clearing where ancient trees stood in a circle, forming a kind of invisible gate. And there he saw her. Ning Asri stood in the center of the roots, bathed in moonlight streaming through the leaves. Her face glowed softly, but her body seemed more transparent than before. Bagas could now see the branches behind her passing through her form. You came, she whispered. I want to know everything, Bagas replied, his voice cracking. Ning Asri lowered her gaze. If you truly want to know, then you must see for yourself. But first you must let go of everything you carry from the outside world. Ties, memories, and doubts. Without hesitation, Bagas removed the cloth from his shoulders and placed it on the ground. He looked into her eyes and saw fear. Not of him, but of something else, something coming. If I go in, can I come back? He asked quietly. Not everyone who enters returns the same way, Ning Asri answered. Then the ground beneath them trembled. Roots shifted, parting the earth like giant hands digging. From within emerged a wide, dark hole, exhaling cold air like the breath of another world. I will go with you, said Ning Asri. But remember, do not touch anything that glows red. And do not trust any voice that mimics someone you love. Bagas swallowed hard. He stepped in, descending into the damp, dark soil. The moonlight stayed above, then vanished completely. All that remained was the sound of their breath and the creaking of roots scraping against each other. Inside the tunnel they walked for a long time. The walls were lined with glowing blue fungi, casting a dim, eerie light. Sometimes they heard distant cries. Sometimes a third set of footsteps followed them, though no one was there. At last, they arrived at a wide underground chamber. In the center stood an enormous banyan tree, its roots hanging like ropes. Beneath it was a stone altar carved with ancient symbols. This is where my mother gave her soul, Ning Asri said. Here, her blood fell and merged with the earth, binding me to a vow I never chose. Boggas stepped closer, staring at the carving. A name was etched faintly into the stone. Sri Pandansari. My mother made a pact with those who have no name. Beings that cannot live above ground. In return, I was made their eyes and hands. But now their power is weakening. And they want a new body to survive. Suddenly, from beneath the massive roots, shadows emerged. They resembled humans, but their bodies were incomplete, made of soil, leaves, and dried blood. The figures didn't speak, yet Boggas heard their voices inside his head. You have come, heir of old blood. Your body is the fulfillment of the vow. Boggas stepped back, his breath short. Ning Asri moved in front of him. You must leave. Before they take control of you. But you, what about you? Boggas asked, panicking. I'm already bound. But you are not. If you remain here when the moonlight fades, they will merge with you. Before he could turn back, thick roots lunged toward him like living ropes. One coiled around his ankle. He fell, and the shadow figures drew closer. Ning Asri screamed. Run, Boggas. I'll hold them off. But then one of the voices changed, imitating his mother's soft tone. Boggas, my son. Don't leave your mother behind. Boggas trembled. It wasn't her voice. It was a trap. He pulled out a small blade carved from bone, used for shaping wood, not made of metal. He slashed the root around his ankle and sprinted toward the way they came. Roots reached for him, but moonlight began seeping in from above once more. 1 step. 2 steps. His breath labored. Ning Asri stood still beneath the tree, her face drenched in tears. I will come back for you, Boggas shouted, just before the moonlight swallowed him and blasted the tunnel in a flood of blinding white light. And then darkness, silence, as if nothing had ever happened there. It had been 3 days since Boggas emerged from the forest that night. His body still trembled every evening, as if the cold from that underground tunnel still lingered beneath his skin. He tried to return to normal life, helping Buratmi, sweeping the yard, washing clothes by the riverbank, but his eyes betrayed the turmoil inside him. On the 4th night the sound returned. Not inside his head this time, but real. Outside his house. Footsteps. Too light for a human, yet too heavy to be an animal. Boggas held his breath behind the window, peeking through. There in the shadows stood a figure. Motionless. Slowly, the figure lifted its face. It wasn't Ning Asri. But it wore her face. The face was pale, unnaturally smooth, as if made of wax. A smile stretched wide without blinking. And as the figure stepped forward, the ground beneath it turned wet, like the damp soil of a grave. Boggas shut the window quickly and locked every door. But the footsteps didn't fade. They circled the house, sometimes on the roof, sometimes at the back door, until finally everything fell silent. The next morning, Buratmi found strange prints in the yard, tiny like the feet of an infant, but sunken deep into the mud. There were no babies in the village. The days that followed grew more disturbing. Boggas began seeing shadowy figures at the edge of his vision. When he bathed in the river, he felt watched from behind the bamboo trees. When he closed his eyes, the same whisper echoed again and again. You are the heir. Your body is the gate. He searched his father's old books, desperate for answers. On the lowest shelf, hidden in fraying cloth, he found a leather journal scrawled with crude handwriting. The journal detailed the legend of the Maiden who guards the boundary, and a blood pact made centuries ago. That in every generation, a male child from a certain bloodline would be born, a vessel whose body would become the bridge for beings of the underworld to cross into the surface. One name repeated throughout the journal, Sri Pandansari. The same name carved into the stone altar in the forest. Bhagas gripped the page, hand shaking. He was a direct descendant of that woman. He wasn't an heir of power. He was an heir of sacrifice. His body wasn't a shield. It was a passage. On the last page of the journal, written faintly in what looked like dried blood, were the words, "If the line is not broken, the guardian will perish, and the final body will become the gate that cannot be closed again." Bhagas knew it meant him. And Ning Asri. She wasn't just the guardian, but the last sacrifice holding destruction at bay. That night, screams came from the forest. Not just one but many. The voices of women, children, old men sobbing. Voices that didn't belong in this world. The village grew restless. People had nightmares. A young mother lost her baby while sleeping beside it. When she woke, all that remained was a damp pillow and dry leaves shaped like a white dove. Bhagas could no longer wait. He went to the home of Pak Karak, the village elder. But when he knocked, there was no answer. He pushed the door open slowly and found Pak Karak sitting stiffly in his chair, eyes wide open and lifeless. His mouth was full of soil. On the wall behind him, smeared in blood, were the words, "The gate will open when the last blood is spilled." Bhagas stumbled outside, barely able to stand. He knew time was running out. That night, he stood at the forest's edge. He brought only one thing, a small piece of wood he had carved into the shape of a dove. The wood came from the old tree behind Buratmi's house, the one no one ever dared to cut. He waited there. And like the nights before, the footsteps came again. But this time not just one, 3, then 5, then too many to count. They stood at the tree line, shadows with human-like forms, wearing familiar faces with cracked, hollow eyes and earth-crusted skin. And among them stood Ning Asri. But this time her face was not pale. It was covered in blood. A root had pierced through her chest, but she remained standing. "They've bound me," she said weakly. "But I can still show you the way. If you're ready." Bhagas looked at her with tear-filled eyes. There was no more time. He had to go back into the forest. But not to ask questions. Not to save. This time to end something that had already begun to live. And that night, carrying nothing but the carved dove in his hand, Bhagas stepped into the shadows once more, as the whispers of the forest grew colder and darker behind him. Bhagas's footsteps grew heavier as he walked deeper into the forest. The air was thick with fog, hanging low like wet wool. The trees stood still, silent, as if holding their breath. No birds. No insects. The forest had fallen mute. Ning Asri's shadow walked ahead, her body torn and wounded, yet upright. Every step she took left a trail of blood that dried instantly on the cold soil. Bhagas wanted to stop her, ask her everything, scream even, but something held his tongue. All he could do was follow. They reached the same place, the stone altar beneath the ancient tree. But now the altar had changed. Crimson cracks ran across its surface, glowing like pulsing veins. At its center, the once silent white dove now stared at Bhagas with glowing red eyes, like burning coals. "This is where it all began," Ning Asri whispered hoarsely. "The place your father rejected his fate. The place where your bloodline made its oath." Bhagas froze. Ning Asri tore her garment at the shoulder, revealing a strange symbol scorched into her skin, a circle with a cross through it, like a sun split in two. "This symbol isn't a shield. It's a key. I am the key to imprison something that's already beginning to awaken." From behind the trees, the earth began to move. Not an earthquake, bodies crawling upward from beneath. Wrinkled hands, melting faces, blind eyes that somehow still saw. They wore garments from centuries past, the robes of elders long gone. But there was no life behind their sagging flesh. "Your ancestors," Ning Asri murmured. "They cannot leave. They were sealed between life and death. Because they broke the promise." Boggaz stepped back. One of the beings staggered forward. From its rotten lips came a whisper. "You, Boggaz. Your blood is not complete. Your body must be opened." They didn't attack. They approached slowly, rhythmically, as if reenacting an ancient ritual. As if all this had been pre-written. Ning Asri moved between Boggaz and the ancestors. "As long as I live, they cannot take you." "Then what should I do?" Boggaz asked desperately. "Do I have to die to stop this?" Ning Asri lowered her gaze. "Not death. Sacrifice." From behind the altar, the ground split open like a yawning mouth. The stench of decay rushed out. From the darkness rose a massive figure, black, cloaked in roots and sludge. Its eyes were two empty holes, weeping the cries of a newborn. "He was the first," whispered Ning Asri. "The failed guardian. The ancestor who tried to possess rather than protect. He opened the first crack." Boggaz clutched the wooden dove in his hand. He stared at the creature's face. Somehow it felt like looking into his own future. If he failed, if he gave in, if he surrendered, he would become like that thing, a fallen guardian, a cursed vessel. "What do I do?" he asked again, his voice cracking. Ning Asri took a trembling breath. "There are only two choices. Let them take your body, or lock the gate with your soul." Suddenly, the white dove on the altar flapped its wings. Blood dripped from its beak. It flew in 3 circles around Boggaz before perching on his shoulder. "That dove belonged to your mother," Ning Asri said softly. "She carried you while the pact was being broken. And that dove, it holds half your soul inside it." Boggaz felt warmth rise in his chest. From the bird, a gentle light flowed into him. He saw memories, his childhood, his mother singing to him beneath the tamarind tree, the peaceful days before the forest grew silent, and his father's final smile before vanishing into the night. Tears welled in Boggaz's eyes. "If I go down there, if I lock the gate, I'll disappear, won't I?" he whispered. Ning Asri said nothing. Her eyes, though glowing red, shimmered with sorrow, not rage. Boggaz closed his eyes. He already knew the answer. The dove flapped its wings once more, now glowing with the same red-gold light that flowed from the wooden carving in his hand. Boggaz's body became cloaked in the light. The ancestors stopped moving. The massive creature roared from the abyss, shaking the ground. And in one final, decisive moment, Boggaz leapt into the open chasm. His body vanished in a burst of blinding light. But it wasn't over. From deep beneath the ground came one final voice. "I am not finished yet." The blast of light from within the earth shattered the silence. The mist that had blanketed the forest was sucked into the ground, as if it were the final breath of a deep wound. The forest fell silent once more, not a peaceful silence, but one that felt cold and wrong. Ning Asri stood frozen, her body trembling, not from fear, but from grief. She stared at the ground, now smooth and undisturbed, as if nothing had ever happened. In the palm of her hand, a single white feather from the dove rested. It slowly turned to ash. The sky darkened. Clouds churned in black spirals. Lightning cracked in the distance, though no rain fell. The wind carried whispers, whispers that didn't belong to this world. Ning Asri turned around, and she knew. Something that should have stayed sealed had now been set free. "Boggers," she whispered, her voice full of guilt. In the distance, a figure slowly approached. His steps calm, clothes clean, face unchanged. But his eyes, those were not Boggers's eyes. The figure smiled. "So you stayed." Ning Asri gasped softly, stepping back. Her wounds ached again, fresh and burning. "You're not him." "Correct," he replied lightly. "I'm what was left behind. What you all sealed away without question." The voice echoed. Not one voice, but two layered on top of each other. Ancient. This was not Boggers. But it was his body. And within that body now lived another soul. The soul once buried beneath the altar. The soul of the first ancestor. The one who craved power, not protection. Ning Asri gripped a short dagger at her waist, its hilt carved with roots and bird wings. Her mother had crafted it years ago, for one purpose only, to end the curse if all else failed. "You think that little thing can stop me?" he mocked, stepping closer. "I know this isn't about stopping you," Ning Asri said softly. "It's about redemption. For all that was betrayed." "Betrayed," he laughed. "You speak of betrayal as if your hands are clean. But I know your secret. I remember everything." Suddenly, visions of the past swirled around them. The night of the first ritual. A young Ning Asri watching her own father sacrifice to seal the first breach. The night she vowed to protect the heir of the cursed bloodline. But then, the night she broke that vow. "Why didn't you kill me when I was a child?" the voice asked coldly. "You knew what I was. Why let me live?" Ning Asri fought back tears. "Because I believed love could heal a broken bloodline." The figure smiled. But not a human smile. "Love doesn't heal. Love weakens. And now, your weakness will cost you everything." Suddenly, roots erupted from the ground, hurling Ning Asri into a tree. She crashed hard, blood spilling from her mouth. But before her body hit the dirt, she threw the dagger, with all her remaining strength. It struck his chest. But no blood came out. What emerged was a pale blue light, the trapped soul of Boggers. For a single fleeting moment, his face returned. Real. Human. "Asri," he whispered, pained and fragile. "I'm sorry." Ning Asri sobbed, tears streaming down her face. But the light vanished. The corrupted soul inside Boggers roared, ripping out the dagger. From the wound, roots burst forth and sealed the opening like it had never existed. "Now, all whoever imprisoned me will know my wrath." The sky split. Lightning struck the ground. The forest began to twist and mutate. Trees groaned and moved, the earth boiled beneath them. The old world stirred from its grave. And Ning Asri knew. Time was running out. The wind roared like 1,000 screams. Tree roots burst from the earth, splitting the ground and tearing open the sky. The creature in Boggers's body walked calmly forward, unhurried, as if time itself bowed to him. Each step he took rotted the ground beneath. Grass withered. Leaves shriveled. The forest cried. Ning Asri crawled up. Her vision blurred, the world spinning. But she knew she couldn't stop. Her heart pounded in her chest, not from fear but resolve. Around her, the ruins of the altar smoldered. All sacred tools were destroyed. All that remained was her will. From within the rubble, a faint voice called out, "Asri!" She turned her head. Beneath a snarl of roots, the white dove was still alive. Its wing was broken. Its eyes glistened, but its light still burned. The dove shook its head gently, as if pleading for her not to give in. Tears spilled from Ning Asri's eyes. She nodded. I'm not finished. Her body broken, her blood staining the earth, she stepped forward. Each movement was agony, but each step was also a vow. The creature before her chuckled lowly. Do you really want to die today? I will not die. Her voice was hoarse but steady. But if I must give my life to stop you, then I will not hesitate. She opened her bleeding palm. Her blood had formed a sacred sigil, one older than the curse itself. She began to chant, not a curse, not a strike, but a summoning. She was calling on something ancient, something even the guardians had feared. The sky turned. Golden mist drifted from the treetops. Dead leaves lit up. The dove's voice echoed faintly, trembling like a buried prayer long forgotten. The creature growled. What are you calling? The origin of light, she whispered. Suddenly, her body glowed with a soft radiance. The light wasn't her own. It came from a bond, between her, the forest, and the white dove. A bond forged by sacrifice, by loyalty, and by a love that never faded. The creature roared, lashing out. Roots surged toward her. But before they touched her skin, the light flared and burned them to ash. Its scream tore through the air. Bogaz's body trembled. His soul, buried deep, began to fight. Asri, help me. Ning Asri turned toward him. The only way to save Bogaz now was to offer her own soul in return. She looked up at the dove, which now flew despite its broken wing, circling them. White feathers fell like snow, glowing as they landed. Origin of light, she whispered. Take my soul. Free him. A blinding light exploded outward. The world went still. And in that breathless moment, Asri and Bogaz stood face to face, suspended in the glow. Slowly, the darkness was torn from Bogaz's body. His soul returned. But Asri's form began to fade. No, don't! Bogaz screamed, tears flooding down his face. Asri! He smiled serene. I've made my choice, Bogaz. You must live. For this forest. For what we once protected. He ran to her, reaching out. But her body had already become light. And with a final gust of wind, she vanished, becoming one with the forest, a new soul guarding it forever. Silence fell over the woods. Clouds broke. The roots receded. The sun rose slowly, its light soft and golden, touching every leaf wet with dew and blood. Bogaz collapsed in the center of the altar, shaking. But he understood. He lived because of a love no power could repay. The white dove landed gently on his shoulder, closed its eyes, and in silence said its final goodbye. From that day on, the forbidden forest no longer rejected humans. But it never again allowed anyone to step into its heart. Because there, a beautiful maiden's soul still watched. In silence, in light, in love that never faded. In this story filled with emotion, sacrifice, and unconditional love, we learn that true strength does not always come from a powerful body or great weapons, but from a sincere heart and unshakable determination. The guardian maiden was not a hero in the traditional sense. She had no extraordinary magic powers. What she had was deep love and unwavering loyalty toward the forest she protected and the one she loved. In life we are often faced with difficult choices. Sometimes we must let go of what we value most in order to save something even more important. Her choice to sacrifice herself teaches us that true love is not about possession, but about giving, even if it means letting go forever. This story also reminds us that nature is not just a place to take from, but a home to be protected. The forest in this tale was not merely trees and earth, but a place with a soul, memories, and guardians who gave everything to protect it. This story is a work of fiction. It was written and crafted to feel real, with the purpose of delivering life values that can serve as motivation, inspiration, and lessons for us all. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support means so much and keeps us excited to bring you more powerful and heartfelt stories. Drop a comment below and let us know which part touched your heart the most, and from which region are you listening. See you in the next story, dear listeners. May this tale stay in your heart and become a small light to guide your journey.